Greetings, Monsterites, and welcome to this episode of Creating Monsters. Now, this is a unique and first of such, and I'm quite excited to share this with you because these series, or these Creating Monsters series, will be showcasing my digital, or mostly specifically my ZBrush creations. That means digital sculpted creations, which I do offer later, usually for sale as 3D printable models. And yes, this one is on Kickstarter right now. You can check it out there. But this is going to be my process and brainstorming behind creating this mushroom queen, as I call her. And with that, I have to thank my patrons, as it's their support that really helps these videos come into fruition. And so a full-hearted thank you to them. Before we jump into the world of 3D digital sculpting, let's jump into digital painting first. I figured the final design would come together piece by piece, but what I was more initially kind of focused on was the pose. So I was looking at different poses and exploring that, and then I started to come up with the concept that you see here. Now, this is a pretty rough concept. I just wanted to get the pose right, kind of proportions, ideas, main ideas, the bigger ideas of the sculpt. If you know me, then you will know that I'm a fan of fungi. I'm a fun guy. Fungi, funguses, mushrooms, love it. So I wanted to take that concept and the female aspect, and being somewhat a new growing sculptor or one-man studio, not necessarily a sculptor, but one-man studio, I wanted something to hit in strong, and of course, female characters and models do very well out there. So I wanted to mix that together without overdoing the feminine side and over-sexualizing it, but rather keeping the fantastical aspect and the feminine energies together and mix that all into a wonderful creation of nature. And I wasn't sure if I just want to do like a female humanoid mushroom person, or make it a little bit a step higher. And so since I wanted to sort of overdo how many mushroom types and fungi she has and that compose her body, I figured making her a bigger creation out there than just a mushroom woman or a mushroom person, which could just be a humanoid person with a cap and being all a mix of humanoid and just one species of mushroom. But I wanted to fit in a bunch of different stuff, really take advantage of 3D printing and what you can do with digital sculpting, not just digital sculpting, but again with 3D printing, as those are our limitations right now. And the limitations aren't that major, not anymore, to what most people can get their hands on. And also this model is going to be larger. I do like to work with miniatures. I work with miniatures professionally as well, creating those, but she will be offered at a larger size, at a collectible size, and then at like an action figure size or nice display piece on your table that will be divided into parts. So I wanted to really push the detail because now I can. With smaller miniatures, you cannot. Of course, when I started to make the head cap, and she being a queen or a deity, something more rare than just a mushroom person, which is already rare in nature, depending on your fantastical world. But for her, I do imagine her a very rare entity to be spotted, at least by the likes of any human. So I wanted to start with the cap, beyond just being one cap being her head or above her head. So I did a cap, and then where the cap thins out, another smaller cap, which I don't think there's a mushroom like that in nature. But I'm not sure exactly which way to find the craziest mushroom, but there are crazy mushroom architectures. Just Google crazy mushrooms out there. Just crazy mushroom designs, but real ones, not fantastical, and you will see just wild stuff out there. The world of mushrooms is amazing. Let's move on. If you really enjoy me talking so much about mushrooms, let me know and I can make another video that can be another bigger part of it, as mushroom hunting has always been a part of my family growing up, and I hope to get back to it these days. Okay, so moving on, I started adding the head and changing the head look as well. To a sort of, there's an artist out there, I forgot to look them up. What I love that they do is they do elvish and fairy type art, but their fairies and elves have a more inhuman look to them. And I really appreciate that about their aspect, about their design of these creatures. A more realistic look of these creatures if they were to exist. So I wanted to grasp that and, of course, put my own twist on it. I think all too often artists in video game design and other game design and just art make their elves or fairies too humanoid. They don't put enough of a nice mix and balance of both nature and that aspect of it and the humanoid aspect. At this point, I just started researching and putting all sorts of different fungi onto the cap top, looking at mushroom anatomy, which is pretty interesting, why they have these skins around and where those skins lay, and I wanted to make sure I get that in this design, and as you will see later as well, even add those little speckles of debris or of the actual mushroom's anatomy that appear on the cap as well as, you get those spots as in the famous red-topped poisonous mushroom with the white spots on it. So there are those details that go into creating a mushroom. Since the cap has a nice open field, it's a nice plain shape. That's why I started to go a little nuts with it. And also, this is going to be a big model. And aside from that, it's basically her crown, her natural crown. Now, the rest of her form, as you will see, I wanted to cover with many mushrooms as well, while maintaining a bit of balance because things can get too busy. And when you get too into adding things here and there, that's often an issue that may arise, especially for newer artists out there. All right, so now we're back at the head. I didn't even experiment with other eyes. In my mind, I had black eyes the whole time. You can color her eyes whatever color you want. I just envision them dark. Basically, like you see with gray aliens. You don't know which place they're looking at because you don't see their pupil, and so eye movement. So you get this feeling that from whatever angle you may approach this entity, they can see you. The shape was the other thing, again, inspired by the one artist. Now, the back of the head, being the kind of creature that this is, I am trying to go in that middle ground, again, between humanity or humans and nature or mushrooms. There doesn't necessarily have to be a brain-like thing. Maybe a brain-like thing, but not a literal, human brain. But I took advantage of that little spot on the back just for artists working with this to explore that a little bit. I give it a little bit of fleshy tone later when you see this all painted up. And that's what I was thinking of when I was making that. So it's like this, it looks important, it looks delicate, a little exposed and vulnerable. So it looks like an important part of this organism. And if it were some sort of boss that you're fighting in a game, that would definitely, in my opinion, be a spot to focus on to do damage to. Moving her nose around was another thing, also inspired by that artwork, making it longer, because actually I was thinking maybe making that shorter. But making it longer gave me all that space to mess with and introduce other geometry in there. And then going off to the side, adding not necessarily ears, but something there that, hints at the idea of ears. I also added the crown-like mushroom growths to accentuate her face and, again, make her stand out more as being a deity of its own and not a hybrid of human and mushroom. The stuff where artists really mix it together to make a wonderful creature monster. That's what makes me excited. I don't get too excited when I see art featuring just humans with a bit of hints of something else like animal parts. They don't really excite me. I like to see a good creative mix of both worlds, or how many worlds you're putting into the artwork. Now, since mushrooms do have that layer of skin that peels off as that cap grows and moves down, that is making a sort of little vest around her chest area. And you can see the edges of that, and that will repeat on the legs as well. I created more of these kind of crests and such of fungus growths to kind of accentuate her form and sort of more than just that female shape there. Since she is in the nude, there is no clothing here, it's just all natural growth. Down her torso, on her belly region, I wanted to make curves again that show off the feminine feature and the organic shapes while keeping it very, well, fungusy or even lichen-like. Lichen plants that grow on rocks and such at very high elevations. Those kind of lichens, not the other ones. Also, mushrooms have types of roots, so I did include that as well. If you're thinking about the colors of that, of course, when you think of roots, you think the brown colors and such, but actually white would be another common thing. But white roots, among other colors, you'd have to figure out how to nicely balance that. Maybe something darker or a dark brown mushroom or a dark burgundy with the white roots or blue. Again, the world of mushrooms, so many colors. As I got to working on her arms and legs, I realized that I liked the balance. She didn't have this appearance of something weak. She didn't look too warrior-esque. It'd be hard to be too warrior-esque with all these delicate things growing off of you. Hence, she's like this deity or this queen, this ultimate creation of mushrooms that gives life to mushrooms and creates mushrooms all around where she steps. The spirit of mushrooms. This model by default had kind of slim legs and slim arms. I did thicken up her leg muscles a little bit, and I think that shape, in addition to all this other stuff going on, gave her this a bit of a more warrior-esque feel to it, but not completely warrior-esque and not completely this queen-like entity that's very delicate and soft, but rather this stronger, primal creature that, of course, created by nature, cannot be so weak if it is to survive in the wild and sometimes chaotic field of nature. A nice concoction that nature decided on how to create and make sense of. With her feet, I had a bit of fun. I didn't want to give her shoes that cover her feet and doesn't make too much sense. But I didn't want just simple feet and toes, because that's a little bit too human, even though she has fingers. I created sort of mushroom petals to envelop her feet as means of protecting that lower portion of her body as she walks on all sorts of grounds and textures. A thing I also think of when making a creation of these mixes of something in humanoid is if it were in the real world, there has to be a sort of a branching out of evolution of how things were created. So if we as humans exist in this reality along with this sort of entity, which one started where and why did that idea of 2 arms, 2 legs, for example, 2 eyes and the nose structure there, why is it impacting both of us while we're both so different? Was one or the other much earlier in our evolution? So have we evolved from mushrooms in this case, or they evolved from us, or we evolved in a similar branch that branched out and we developed at the same time? So those are some interesting thoughts I go through, not just as a monster master, but, well, as an artist and trying to make sense of what I'm creating. After having fun with all that, I did get onto the base. I didn't want to put too much detail on the base as I want her to stand out, but I wanted the nice base to balance her out and to give her motion a little bit of sense too, and give her sort of a stage. Like, for example, you'd have a throne, but in this case, I don't want her sitting, so just give her a sort of stage, a background that accentuates her and who she is and what she is. Let me know what you think of this series, this whole new setup that I really had a fun time creating and messing around. And for the first time, I'm also going to offer a NFT along with this model. So for those of you out there that are into that, it's going to be one NFT showcasing her in all of her glory. And the thing with that NFT is that whoever owns that NFT will have access and can download for free the downloadable files of her. The owner of the NFT has that right, whoever it is at the time. Of course, nobody has the right to print and sell prints of my models unless they get a commercial license, as it goes with this marketplace, and I offer that for a real cheap monthly price that covers all my models. And that's in the Monsterite Patreon if you are interested in that. All in all, I'm very happy and proud of this model, and it's something that I love and got to bring out there and share with everybody. And I hope you like these series because they're going to be coming out more often as I create more stuff for you guys to print out and have fun with out there. So not just a video you can enjoy, but also something you can possibly get out there, print it out, and have on your table. And you can always refer to this video of how it was created and the brainstorming behind it. Thank you for watching, Monsterites, and I'll see you in the next one.